If you are 30 years old today, you should be terrified. According to the biggest biological myth in history, your life is already over. You are an ancient elder waiting for your organs to shut down. But if you stand up and move around, your body completely disagrees. You are not physically breaking down at 30. You can run, you can heal, and your immune system is at peak efficiency. So why do we all believe our prehistoric ancestors simply expired in their prime? The 30-year ancient lifespan is a lie. It is one of the most widely repeated biological myths in existence. Your ancestors did not drop dead at 30. The truth about how long they lived and why they lived that long is darker, stranger, and much more beautiful than you expect. To understand the lie, you have to look at how we measure death. The number 30 is not a biological expiration date. It is a mathematical illusion. It is a metric called life expectancy at birth, and it hides a horrific historical reality. Imagine an ancient tribe of just two people. One of them is a newborn baby who catches a severe bacterial infection and dies of a fever at exactly 1 year old. The other is a seasoned tribal elder who survives the elements, dodges predators, outlives every famine, and finally dies peacefully by the fire at 79 years old. If you take those two lives and average them together, the life expectancy of that tribe is exactly 40 years. But nobody died at 40. There was no 40-year-old. There was a tragedy, and there was an old man. This is the exact statistical quirk that distorted our entire view of human history. The ancient world was not a place where adults naturally died young. It was a place where babies died in catastrophic numbers. For most of human history, the first 5 years of life were a relentless gauntlet of infection, disease, and vulnerability. A simple scratch could become lethal. A seasonal drop in temperature could wipe out the weakest infants. The mortality rate for toddlers was astronomical, and that massive, constant wave of early death dragged the statistical average down to 30. But the average is not the ceiling. If you survive the brutal lottery of your first 5 years, your statistical outlook completely transformed. You broke through the filter. If you made it out of childhood, your body was programmed to keep running. So how long did they actually run? We do not have to guess, because the evidence is written in the architecture of the dead. When anthropologists dig into the earth and look at skeletons from the Upper Paleolithic, they are not finding the bones of 25-year-olds who mysteriously collapsed from old age. They are finding wear and tear that takes a lifetime to accumulate. Bones record the passage of time with brutal honesty. Joint degeneration, osteoarthritis, the fading of cranial sutures, and the severe wearing down of teeth are biological clocks. You do not grind your molars down to the gum line by age 30. You do it over 60 or 70 years of chewing tough, fibrous ancient food, stripping meat from bone, and using your teeth as tools to grip animal hides. In a landmark 2004 study, anthropologists Rachel Kaspari and Songhee Lee examined the fossil records of hundreds of ancient hominids. They made a stunning discovery. During the Upper Paleolithic, around 30,000 years ago, there was a massive demographic shift. For the first time in human evolution, the number of adults surviving to be older skyrocketed. People who lived long enough to be grandparents suddenly became a dominant part of the population. And when researchers look at contemporary hunter-gatherer societies that live without modern medicine, they see the exact same blueprint. A massive 2007 demographic study by anthropologists Michael Gervin and Hillard Kaplan examined tribal populations across the globe. They found that while infant mortality remains brutally high, the individuals who survive childhood routinely live to 68, 70, or even older. Their bodies are built for 7 decades of use. Which brings up an uncomfortable question. If ancient humans were routinely living past 60, then our entire mental image of the prehistoric world is wrong. But the biology of growing old hides an uncomfortable paradox. This isn't just a story about math anymore. It's a brutal story of survival. Look at almost any other mammal on Earth. In the animal kingdom, biology is ruthlessly efficient. When an animal loses its ability to reproduce, it usually dies soon after. There is no evolutionary reason for a body to keep consuming food, water, and resources if it cannot pass on its genes to the next generation. A chimpanzee, our closest genetic relative, rarely lives past its reproductive years in the wild. But humans are an extreme exception. Human women go through menopause, permanently losing the ability to have children, and then they routinely live for another 30 or 40 years. They spend decades consuming resources without reproducing. In the brutal economy of evolution, that looks like a massive waste of energy. In fact, we belong to an incredibly exclusive biological club. Only a handful of species on the entire planet experience menopause and extended post-reproductive lifespans. Humans, killer whales, short-finned pilot whales, narwhals, and belugas. That is it. So why would evolution allow it? Why would nature build a primate that stubbornly stays alive for decades after its reproductive window closes? And here's where it gets stranger. The answer is not that evolution tolerated old age. It is that evolution went out of its way to build it. The answer arrived in 1998 when anthropologist Kristen Hawkes and her colleagues published what is now called the grandmother hypothesis. They had spent time observing the Hadza people, a traditional hunter-gatherer group, and they noticed something striking about the daily labor. The older women, the grandmothers, were working incredibly hard. They were out foraging for deep-rooted tubers, gathering reliable food, and feeding the young children. This single observation triggered a radical reframing of human history. Human babies are notoriously helpless. They require immense amounts of calories and care for years. If an ancient young mother is carrying a nursing infant, she cannot efficiently dig for deep tubers or hunt for complex calories. She is physically constrained. But if there is a grandmother nearby doing the heavy foraging and feeding the older, weaned toddlers, the mother's burden is lifted. Because of the grandmother, the children survive at much higher rates. And because the children are fed and protected, the mother can actually have her next child sooner. The elders were not a drain on ancient resources. They were the engine that kept the tribe alive. They were an evolutionary cheat code for population growth. And it went far deeper than calories. An ancient human lived in a volatile, dangerous world. What happens when a severe drought strikes that hasn't happened in 40 years? The 20-year-old hunters do not know what to do. They have never seen the rivers dry up. 65-year-old elder sitting by the fire? Members. They remember the drought from their own childhood. They remember which specific valley holds the hidden spring that never goes dry, or which toxic plant can actually be boiled and eaten in an emergency. Like the matriarchs of killer whale pods who lead their families to salmon during lean years, human elders were the hard drives of the ancient world. They carried the rare, life-saving data that the tribe needed to survive extreme ecological shocks. Evolution did not tolerate old age as a biological accident. Evolution actively selected for it. The tribes that had grandparents surviving into their 70s outcompeted the tribes that did not. Old age is not a modern medical invention. It is an ancient, calculated survival strategy. But that's not the same as saying it was safe. Making it to 70 was a brutal lottery. The ancient world didn't kill you with time, it killed you with violence. If you got a deep cut that infected, you died. If you broke a femur and could not keep up with the nomadic group, you died. A severe dental abscess could travel to the brain and kill an otherwise healthy adult in days. Childbirth was incredibly dangerous, and predators were a constant reality. There was no safety net, and the environment constantly tried to kill you. But the crucial distinction is this. If an ancient human died at 40, they died of trauma or infection. They did not die of old age. Their biological clock had another 30 years left on it. Your body was forged in that exact environment. Your heart, your lungs, your cellular repair mechanisms, they were all heavily beta tested over millions of years to run reliably for 7 decades. You are currently driving a biological machine that was explicitly built for extreme endurance. We tend to look back at our ancient ancestors with a mixture of pity and superiority. We imagine small, terrified groups of teenagers shivering in the dark, dying out before their lives even started, waiting for modern medicine to eventually save them. But that is completely backwards. Your ancestors were not a demographic tragedy. They were complex, resilient, multi generational communities. They had impulsive teenagers, they had exhausted parents, and they had wrinkled, white haired elders who held the long memory of the world. You were never designed to die young. The fact that humans routinely live to be 70 or 80 years old today is not simply because we invented antibiotics, vaccines, or water treatment plants. Those modern inventions are incredible, but they only stop us from dying of infections at 5 or 20 or 40. They clear the obstacles from the road. But the reason the road goes to 80 in the first place is because the blueprint was already there. Your ancient ancestors secured that lifespan for you, written permanently into your DNA, because they needed each other to survive. So the next time you hear someone casually say that humans used to drop dead at 30, remember the math. 30 was never the limit. 30 was the tragic statistical cost of getting a few people to 70. Your long life is not a recent glitch in the system. It is the oldest trick your species has. Nothing is as ordinary as it looks.